This is a talk from Miss Amber Jones. She is one of our Delta Omega alumni. She is currently a grants management specialist at the VA in Central Western Massachusetts. She's been there for roughly 6 years, right, Amber? Not completely in that role. You had a little time for a year working as a research assistant at the VA. And she's going to tell us about her experience in public health, kind of her education, how she got to this place, give us some helpful tips for current students or currently graduating students. And another little tidbit, she was inducted into Delta Omega in 2017 and says that she proudly keeps her certificate hanging in her home office. So Amber, go ahead and take it away. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. It's not too much more that I can say. No, it's a lot that I can say. So I started off at WVU, kind of like everybody else on this call, in public health. I was on the track of social and behavioral health sciences. When I first started, it was in transition into the School of Public Health. So I am one of the inaugural graduating classes of the School of Public Health. I actually was able to hold the sign and come down the aisle. So I felt so privileged. What happened? So while I was there, I was a MPH ambassador, which I pretty sure I heard now kind of goes into like another role, but I kind of went around and helped recruit other students into our School of Public Health programs. When I was recruiting, it kind of gave me the ability to learn about the different subparts, I guess, of public health, all 5 of the other programs, policy, epidemiology. I'm not sure everyone's background on here, but math was not my thing. So biostatistics and epidemiology were not my go-to classes. Policy I thought was really interesting, but when I went around to trying to promote people to come to our school, my most important thing was to know about each of those programs. Because if math is not my suit, that's not saying that somebody with a bachelor's in mathematics wouldn't want to come into public health and do biostatistics. So I tried to make sure that I freshened up on what each of those other areas of public health would do, because public health itself is broad. You can go so many different places. And I remember talking to my advisor one day, and I had told her I wanted to work for the government. And she was like, so what government? Like, you want to work local, state, federal? I'm like, oh no, now there's more options, right? I was like, I don't know. I don't know. A lot of us don't know what we want to do going into this field. You kind of just got to get your feet wet in different areas. So I participated in an internship going into my second year. So I guess it will be similar to y'all capstone or practicum that you all have to take. So I took an internship in it. One of the professors at the School of Public Health then was Dr. Kelly Gurka, and she had a research study with West Virginia University, Virginia Commonwealth University, and Virginia State University. And I was the research, mind you, this is just non-paid internship in the middle of the summer. I was the research assistant for WVU. While I was going through some documents, Dr. Gertha found out that there was some data missing at the other sites. So I was able to travel. Who doesn't like to travel? So I went to Virginia State University to find out how they were doing the study there. Then I went to Virginia Commonwealth University, and I found out that that was kind of where a lot of the study data was coming up missing. So my location became Richmond, Virginia. I had a friend that stayed in Virginia, so I stayed with her, and I was able to meet a lot of people in the field of public health. Now you have people that work in a hospital, and do public health type work. And I'm like, oh, these are different avenues. Like, what's your degree in? What did you learn? What you come away from? So I got that experience of collecting data, recruiting people, and then came back to finish my second year at West Virginia University. And funny enough, when I graduated, I didn't have a job, right? I was like, what am I gonna do next? Because the job area, we think it's sparse now. It's always seemed like it's sparse when you're looking for. It's like everybody's hiring, but nobody's hiring, right? Everybody's accepting applications, but for some odd reason, your application just does not make it. So for about 6 months, I think. Was it 6? No, it wasn't that much. Maybe 3 months. Wasn't that long. So for about 3 months, I actually was a nanny for one of the professors at the School of Public Health. So I had I have a side hustle, right, while I'm waiting. But they heard from another one of their colleagues that one of the researchers was looking for a research assistant. Voila, here I am. No job, ample opportunities, but these professors all kind of knew about me and knew about my interests. So my interest was maternal and child health. We, of course, didn't have that as a subfield, but my internship at VCU was related to maternal health. So when they were looking for a position, they was like, well, we have a recent grad who's looking for a job. And the researcher is actually, she's a pediatrician. So I was like, oh, this would be real cool, real up my speed, what I'm interested in. So then when I started at WVU Research Corporation. I didn't even know that was a place that I should apply to look for a job. Look, it's right here in my backyard, and I didn't even know that place exists. So here's one hint. If you're looking for a job or if you're looking for something, you do have the WVU Research Corporation there, who's also looking for research assistants if that's something you want to do. And they're probably not just looking for research assistants. There's all different types of research jobs, qualitative, quantitative. So you can always jump in wherever your interests are. But when I ended up getting the job at the Research Corporation, just like grants, research is a lot of people who work on grant funded studies is soft money. So the money is not there long term. Most grants probably last 5 years, and then some PIs are able to renew, right? So I just so happened to come in like the 4th year of the study. So now I got this great job, and now it's about to be over. And I'm like, wait, I just started. So they actually were able to get the grant extended. I was like, okay, great. Now I have this job. But at the same time, I had already been applying to all these other places because at the moment, I was about to be out of a job. So I applied using USA Jobs, which can be very complicated to use. You applying for all these positions. You don't know what none of these little icons mean that's on the side, internal, external, right? Promotions only. So I'm just applying to all these jobs, getting all these little deny things. Now I work a little closer to USA Jobs, so I'm going to give you my input on that a little bit later. So I'm applying to all these jobs, and I get this interview at VA Central Western Mass. And they were interviewing for somebody for a women's health specific research study. Hey, I'm the person for you. At the same time, my job had renewed, right? So now I have a job and I have a potential job. And I was like, now you got to weigh your options. Am I going to stay here where I know the funding is basically over? They just got renewed. Or am I going to move over here where they just got a study renewed for 5 years? So, I was like, WVU, you have been great to me. However, I have to move along. I've been to Massachusetts one time. I went to APHA, and it so happened to be in Boston, like maybe the year before. Who would have knew the next year later I would have been, moving up that way. So I ended up moving to Massachusetts as a research assistant. And I was so great at my job. Our AO was leaving, our administrative officer. And my boss was like, hey, I know you're working over here on this study. However, because, money is, not money. When it comes to quantitative data, extrapolation, SAS and SPSS, that's not my thing. But if you want me to help you budget your finances, I'm your girl. So because I was helping with a lot of grant preparation, she was like, do you want to move into this position? Now, when I tell y'all, this is how I know about the USA job system. I had to apply for this job 3 times in order to get the job. I'm helping put the job into the system, but for some odd reason, I can't get the job. So then, these 3 cycles go by, and now I'm the grants management specialist. All of this happened between the year of, I got hired at the VA in February 2015, and in September 2016, I became the grants management specialist. So, there was time for increase, or a quick increase there. Since I've been here, I probably hired maybe 6 people, 7 people in the last 5 years I've been in this position. So this moves me to USA Jobs, right? As the grants management specialist, I am also the administrative officer. So I oversee the entire research program here at VA Central Western Massachusetts. The VA is a large organization. However, we have this saying, the VA as a whole don't like the saying, but if you've been to one VA, you've been to one VA. Now, the VA is supposed to all work together, but for some odd reason, one VA's rules are different than another VA's rules. So that brings me to my VA sits in a VISN. We're the first VISN, we're the oldest VISN in the United States. There are 8 medical facilities that fall within this VISN. There's VA Boston, VA Maine, Manchester, which is in New Hampshire, White River Junction, which is in Vermont, Bedford, which also sits in Massachusetts, Central Western Mass, which we sit kind of like Northampton area. We're like the Berkshires-ish. People go skiing and stuff out this way. And then we have VA Connecticut and then Rhode Island. So we're kind of like that New England area. I know you all heard of the Patriots, right? So we're all this New England area of support. As of now, 6 years I've been here. I am the oldest AO that has been here because 2 AOs just retired after 30 years of being an AO. I did not know when you're an AO, you plan to be there that long. But we all interact, we all talk, we have monthly calls with each of the VISNs. So when it comes to hiring, we have this thing called classification. So we have to send all of our position descriptions to classification. They classify it either as a GS 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever. When it goes to USA Jobs, you have to read the description at the bottom that says what we're looking for, because everything that's written there is what I put in the position description. And if it does not match that, then some random person in HR will eliminate your resume before I even get it. So if it says this person must be able to interview interviewees and do whatever, you make sure your resume say, I have interviewed interviewees and whatever, because if not, they're not going to send you to me. Also, we have numbers. So if you're looking at a job position in USA Jobs, it might say research assistant 0601-7. That means 0601 means it's a health science specialist. You have to have a science-related degree. If you do not have a science-related degree, we will not see your resume. So 7 will mean what grade you will come in, which will be your salary. Everybody comes in at the same grade unless you were working at a different VA and you applied into our VA. When you get to those assessment questions, they will ask you, the first question might say, I have experience recruiting individuals. Never, sometimes, I'm an expert, you have to put you're an expert. We're asked to grade our questions before they go to USA Jobs, and majority of the time we put them all as they have to mark it as they're an expert. Even if you're not an expert, we're telling you mark it as an expert because we can always train you. We like people who are trainable. I don't want you really coming in here telling me what you did at another place because we might do it different, right? But we also want you to at least have that. We can, if you don't have an interview, not one person, we can help you interview one person. We can send you the trainings and all that stuff like that. But mark it as I'm an expert. So A, you make sure that you meet all the criteria that's listed in the position description, which would basically be, these are the degrees you must have. Make sure that that's the degree that you have. Second, when you get to those assessment questions, you make sure that you list, I'm an expert, right? I'm an expert. The third one is when it comes to asking you, please upload a resume, a cover letter. If that stuff is asked, please include it. If it's not, we will not receive it. So surprisingly enough, we will submit for a position to be filled. We send it to USA Jobs. I might get 3 resumes. I know more than 3 people applied for this job. However, somebody didn't include a resume. We have some people that might email and say, hey, I've applied for a position. Then I will have to go to USA Jobs and say, where is this person at? And they'll say that person didn't say, I'm an expert in the assessments. So they're not going to come in until your next batch of applicants. So if I don't choose anybody from that first batch, then I will be able to pull from that second batch where you might be located. I believe for USA Jobs, that's pretty much it. Just make sure you follow all the directions. If you're looking for a job, make sure you follow all the directions. And mark everything as complete. If you are applying for a job and you have a contact there, on USA Jobs, the contact on the bottom of the main page is not the person hiring. That's just our HR person. So if you email them, they're not going to know anything about what's going on. So if you know anybody who might be at the facility you're trying to connect with, funny enough, there's a couple of people who went to WVU who work at different VAs. And we can message each other. But if you know anybody, we can always connect to another person. If you apply to a VA in Albuquerque, I can email the VA in Albuquerque and be like, hey, I know somebody who applied to that position, right? Really, if it's only in research, I don't know anybody in other service lines. So I can't really help you in that aspect. What else? I enjoy my job. I really love it. My boss wants us to stay on. So I'm a permanent position. I'm not on soft money, but other people who are on soft money, I will just let her know, hey, such and such is coming up for renewal. And we need to make sure we either have grant funding that we can put them on or find some funding, apply for some more grants so we can make sure that we keep these people on. So we definitely try our best, even if your term 4 years, if you get hired for term 1 year, that does not necessarily mean you will be only at that position for 1 year. What else with my position?
So Amber, sorry if I can just jump in here. So to get kind of a broad understanding, your current role, you kind of manage the entire your research program, or in the maternal and child health area, or?
No, I manage everything. I manage grant submissions. I even let the PIs know which grants are coming available. Hey, if you're planning on submitting a grant, your letter of intent is due by April 10th. Get it to me by then so I can upload it. I
keep them in line.
Budget requests. If they need a budget document done, I do their budget justifications. I say how much each person's salary will be, how much percent effort they can have be on this study. they have this whole thing about everybody can only be 100% effort, but in reality, we work over 100% on some of these grants. So I just kind of make sure I work the numbers so that if you're working 50% on this study, you're working 30% on this study, you're working 20%, you know, to make sure everybody's covered. I do hiring. I submit all the stuff for hiring, and then I interview everybody when it's time to hire. I do all of their IT requests. If somebody gets locked out of their account, I'm their person for IT requests. We're a small facility, so I end up doing it all.
One woman army.
Right, exactly. And I have people that I go to in my department. We have somebody who's another health science specialist, and I go to him for all my regulation things. Right, I have somebody else who's biostatistician, so I go to them if I need, hey, this person needs a biostatistician on their study. Are you able to give 15% effort, you know, to work on their study? We actually tried hiring a biostatistician, like a lower level, not so much a PhD. And funny enough, we didn't get a lot of people. We got a lot of mathematicians. And it was one of those things on how the position was labeled. It went in as they're only taking people with math degrees. And we had to tell HR, no, we don't want people with math degrees. You know, we want people with a science field because we're looking for a biostatistician, not so much a mathematician. It's still kind of, HR is still trying to work with us.
So in terms, maybe, you know, like thinking forward and future planning for the students that are joining and watching this later, what kind of, you know, as they're graduating, or what kind of positions or opportunities do you think, you know, spring to mind that may be at the VA or any other, you know, that you see on USA Jobs that you were mentioning?
So I would say try to stick to, not so much stick to your field, but if you want to do research, there's a lot of research. It might say health science specialist or program support specialist. Some people might not actually have research positions where you're doing research. You might just be admin, collecting data. We have a lot of sites who are larger who have bench, you know, bench studies, but they might take on a research assistant to do all of their admin stuff. Not so much running the mice in labs or whatever they're doing. But yeah, I just say, you know, apply, and make sure you check all those boxes if you are applying. Put in research in the little search box, and whatever pops up, you can apply. Oh, and then if it says open to all, that's when you are applying. It might be like a blue circle with many people on it. If it says close, you know, don't. We have some where they're only open to like internal. I can open up a position only for VA Central Western Mass people to apply. You might see it, but your resume is not going to come through anyway.
Okay. That's good to know. Sorry, I kind of started going into a question and answer session here. So if anybody else has questions on the call, feel free to hop in. But I think one of my other questions, so you spoke earlier kind of how you had a lag, right, between graduating and finding a position, and that resonated with me. I was in the same boat when I finished. But was there anything that you did kind of in that, I won't say off time, but to make yourself a little more marketable? Were there any certifications or anything that you've completed or that you've completed now in your position that may be of benefit for students graduating now or, you know, later on that would make them marketable?
I actually was going to go into the Air Force, and I
Okay.
said I wanted to work for the government, and I know if I go into the Air Force, then I could go into the government from there. I had other classmates who went on to do like a nursing degree or a PA, you know, when we, you know, during that time period where you feel like, well, what's next? My mom even said, you can come move back with me. And I'm like, no. But in between that time when I was looking to do the Air Force, that was kind of, I went through like all the steps. Everything went good. It was my undergrad GPA that I didn't even know anybody was going to look at. that actually hindered me from going to there. But in that time period was when the WVU professor kind of found out that I was looking for a job and ended up finding me a job. So just, I say, continue to network with your professors that you currently have, or your advisor, or whoever is close to you, because they can definitely help you if you feel like you're in that runt or that in between space and you don't know what to do. You know, just when you're about to quit, you never know what might pop up in your inbox.
John, can I add something to that as well, as someone who works with students and alumni in this space often?
Absolutely.
One, Amber, thank you. It's good to see you again, and I always love to hear you speak on your experiences. So I'll say something that I've seen that has helped out students and alumni in the past. If you're relocating to a new city or a new space, a lot of people have to do those odds and ends jobs. You mentioned nannying, and that's great. You got to pay the bills. As much as you can, I would encourage students to look for organizations in that area who may have volunteer needs. And so that sort of keeps some other things that are fresh on your resume and allows you to begin to build a network in that area, in that location too. I know I've seen lots of folks who've taken some of those unpaid opportunities as volunteer with local health departments or hospitals. And so when those next positions become available in line in those spaces, they're in that queue by doing that. And so that may be 2 months, that may be 8 months. You never know. Everything will work out in its own time in that way. But that's something I would encourage. And then the second piece of that, networking, you've mentioned, is critical. We have WVU alumni all over the country. And so the Alumni Association does a really good job of breaking down by city and state where we have chapters of the Alumni Association. So I always encourage students, if you're relocating to a new space, particularly Boston or anywhere in that neck of the woods in Massachusetts, Philly, New York, Charlotte, oh my goodness, that's WVU South. Go to the Alumni Association page, find that chapter, and you're going to find at least 2 to 3 contacts who are presidents of those chapters. And I can't tell you how many times I've reached out to those folks and said, hey, I have a student who's moving to that area. Are you willing to connect with them to talk about that transition? And then the next thing you know, they respond, send me the email. I'm happy to connect with that person. Give me their resume. And then that resume gets blasted among that WVU network in that city of a couple thousand or many thousand people. And then you have all these other people who maybe know of these things that you just can't know in that new space. So I encourage people to sort of operate with that networking mentality too, and to keep your faculty in mind, just like you said. If I'm getting these opportunities, and it's funny that you mentioned Albuquerque and the space and having people there. We have epidemiologists who run state level programs out there as well. So when you see a random job pop up from Albuquerque, we've got people out there who want to hire WVU people. But keep your faculty, your staff, the people that you worked with while you're here in mind, because if I know that you're actively seeking, when I get those opportunities and I get that, hey, Amber's looking here or John's looking here, I'm going to keep firing you emails when I see them come across that space until you tell me, stop, I'm good, I'm in this space, I got this job, thanks, I'm all right. So people will do that for you if you're engaging them. Otherwise, we assume that it's out of sight, you're out of mind, you're taken care of. Clearly, you don't need any help, or you would reach out, though that's not how people operate. Keep people engaged who are here at the university and that you worked with closely and built those relationships with, because they always know someone who knows someone.
Scott, I wanted to add on, you talked about the alumni network. I recently moved from Massachusetts to Connecticut. And when they send you, WVU sends out all these emails like, hey, please update your information. It is important that you update your information, because I recently received a letter from the Connecticut chapter saying, welcome to Connecticut.
Right. Oh,
so now I have a Connecticut family.
And some of them are more connected than others. Some networks really do that well. But if you engage it, if they don't reach out to you, there's still usually a handful of those people who are really into helping anyone that they see with that flying WV who pops up in their neck of the woods. Because if you say, let's go, they're going to hit Mountaineers, right?
Somebody at my job actually has a flying WV in the back of their car. And I don't know who it is, but I'm like, hey, I know you.
Everywhere. I got yelled at in San Diego, California while I was wearing a Flying WV t-shirt while we were there for a conference. And the woman was hanging out of her car screaming, let's go, Mountaineers. And I was like, what's going on?
That connection is really nice.
All right, I have more questions, but I'll let other people do it too, because I love to chat.
Actually had a question. Well, first of all, thanks again, Amber, for sharing. You're really fun to listen to, actually. But we've got some folks just looking at who's on the call and like thinking about folks who might watch it later. Some are graduating this semester, and then others may have another year or two. So I guess just thinking about your experience while you're in the program at WVU, what are some things that you could maybe suggest were most important or helped you while you were a student, to those experiences? You mentioned your internship, but those experiences that we as current students should probably look into or try to take advantage of sort of leading up to graduating.
I'm definitely going to go back to the internship, practicum, capstone, whichever one that you have to do. That is get the most information out of that you can, because that will probably be the most experience you will have coming out of grad or undergrad school. So it will be the most important information that you can put on a resume. When somebody asks you for experience, here's what I have. It might not be paid experience, but that we don't really care as long as you have some type of experience. Also, going back to some of the professors, you might have some studies that they're operating on. They might not need help, but you can still go up to them and say, hey, I'm interested in learning more about X, Y, and Z. I see that this is your subject matter. You're a subject matter expert in this. So can you give me some more information? And just taking in that little bit of information, they might say, okay, well, can you run this data? Can you run this participant? And then before you know it, you have experience that you can now put on your resume as well. So I'm just definitely going back to taking in as much as you can with all these people, with all this knowledge that is around you, because once you're out of school, now you kind of just sitting there like, oh, I guess I can reach back out to them and see if they need me, right? But yeah, you can just reach out to them while you're there. That way it won't seem random when you reach out to them after you graduated.
Does anybody else have questions? Otherwise, I'm going to go back to Scott.
More of a comment, because, Amber, you just mentioned sort of reaching out to faculty for research, but as a shameless plug, we're hoping, Delta Omega is hoping to do another sort of research networking event later this month on April 23rd to sort of link students up with faculty for potential summer opportunities or thinking about next year with research.
See, there you go, shameless plug.
And I'll add in another shameless plug for another lunch and learn that we did previously that Dr. Clayton did on how to kind of network and make yourself marketable in terms of research. That kind of fits into this conversation here with research jobs and positions at the federal level, at the federal government. So that should be on our Delta Omega webpage, I believe. So.
And I was going to say, not everybody probably won't go into research. Some people might want to teach. Teaching just was not my forte. However, I have a really good friend / sister. I call her my sister. She teaches, but she also does research. If you do go into the teaching field, they might ask you to do some research. So it might be beneficial to have some type of research underneath your belt so that you can jump into that position. But if you want to teach, that's also something you can look into. And for our VA, we have a lot of academic affiliations. So we do make sure if you come in, and if you're interested in, a lot of people come in and want to go to clinical psych. So they come in and we'll pair them with somebody who actually is a clinical psychologist. And then that way they're able to get that experience, and then they move on to something else. So, this job, your next job might not be your end job, but it might prepare you for what you want to do next.
I think that's a good point too.
Right. You might not jump immediately into something public health, but you can always use that experience to get to your next position that might be in public health.
Yes. Okay, I think we have time for one question, Scott. So pick
Oh, geez.
the most pressing question.
No pressure. I've got like all these little like ping pong balls. How do I pick one? I don't know if it's really a question as much as it is a comment, because as someone who's worked with students in public health from all degree programs at a couple of different schools of public health, I think it's easy for people to be impressed by titles, Amber, and so they'll see someone like you who joins and you have this history and this background, and today it seems like, oh my goodness, she's all buttoned up and she's had it all together and she's always known and everything fell right in her lap. So I like to really break it down to a level that I think students can relate to in their spaces, and I think you've done that in terms of talking about the experiences that you've had. So I guess if you could go back to, and one, oh my goodness, your stuff on USA Jobs and how that's a different language, and how I always have to phone a friend when I have students who are applying to those jobs, because it's another language. It's so coded and it doesn't make too much sense to the common person. So thank you for breaking that down. That's as good a breakdown as I've heard of how to navigate that system. So I really do appreciate that. And others who are watching this or are here today, take note of that. Yes, you are an expert in everything. But can you reflect back maybe on that process of the job search, and if you feel comfortable speaking in that space, and if not, that's okay. But reflect back on that job search process and that time period of, I think, 6 or 7 or whatever number of months that you were talking about when you were a nanny. How did you sort of keep your eyes on that prize that you had that you were working toward? How did you stay motivated in that space? And did you have those moments of, oh, it's just not going to happen? Because I think so many people reach that point and then I don't know where they find the resilience or how we encourage students to get that resilient nature and to push on. Because again, this is the first time in life that most people are hearing no for the first time when they're looking for jobs, right? You go to college, you apply to 7 or 8, maybe you get into 4, 8, I don't know. But this is the first time when you apply to 60 jobs or 70 jobs and you're only probably going to get 1 yes, but that's all you need, right? So do you remember how many jobs you applied for, and then what was going on in your head, and how were you sort of keeping on track with all of that stuff at that time?
So funny. So I'm going to actually go back to me going into grad school. I came in as on a probation.
Okay.
Because my GPA was not good from undergrad. So when I came in, they basically said, you can't have not one C or we're going to kick you out. That was how I started. Yep. I started with some type of determination, like I have to succeed. So coming into school with that motivation of, I have to do well or I'm going to fail out. And then having all this support system once you get there. I worked under Ruth Kirshner. So she was my mentor / I was a graduate assistant. She actually helped me get a graduate assistantship, because when I came in, I was on probation and you can't get a graduate assistantship when you're on probation. So my second semester, she was like, do you need help? And I said, I do need help. And she was like, well, I got you. And she helped me find a graduate assistantship so that I would not, because I came from Indiana. So I was paying out of state tuition, taking out all these loans. So fast forward, now I'm graduated, right? Graduated May, got a job in February, right? So that's how long I was unemployed. And I say that I had some friends that we all kind of gravitated to each other while in the grad program. And a lot of y'all might know her. So Amy Hunter is like my sister go-to. She actually moved to Connecticut. So we're like neighbors, 10 minutes down the road. But she allowed me to stay in her house when I didn't have anywhere. Like I had places to go, but I was still looking for a job and I didn't want to just give up and move back home with my mom. So if you have that friend who's willing to help you out, because me and her was going through the same thing. She decided to actually go and get her PhD. And so while she was getting her PhD, that wasn't something I wanted to do, but she helped motivate me. Like, hey, Amber, how's it going? I can help you out. And then mind you, she now has these extra people that she's talking to. Like, hey, I can tell you if somebody else has a job. We have 2 different fields. She's epidemiology. I'm social and behavior. However, hey, once you can get in, if you can get a job, you can get a job, right? So she's the one I believe that might have reached out and said one of the teachers was looking for a nanny. which is how I became a nanny, right? So now I'm nannying for a teacher for the times that I was for the whole six whatever amount of time that I was unemployed. So no, I got a job in November. So from May to November, when I was unemployed, that was the time where I had my friend help me out and make sure that I was continually motivated. Because sometimes you can hear from family, but it's so much different when it's coming from a friend, right? The family can tell you what you want to hear, but a friend will tell you how you need to hear it. Like, girl, you need to get up off your tail and get on that internet and find you some jobs. Going to Albuquerque, one of my classmates went to Albuquerque, got her a job. I applied to everywhere. New Mexico, Washington, D.C., Florida, whoever was hiring, I was applying. I didn't have anything to hold me down. So I was like, I'm going to just move wherever the good Lord sends me. And so I'm applying to all these different places, no after no after no. I'm applying to all these local health departments, state health departments, hospitals. I'm emailing the people that's sent out the whatever's on the web page that says hire, apply here. I'm emailing the person at the bottom of the apply here, like, hey, have you got my resume? Have you heard anything back? Sometimes you will not hear anything back. Take that as a silent no, right? You might not hear anything back. I became so like that's why I had to call my mom, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And she was in the Army. She didn't want me to go into the military, but she said if you do go in, you can only go in for the minimum amount of time. Once that time is over, don't think about renewing. You're gonna have to get out. So then when I told her, I said, well, they told me no anyway. She was excited. But now I'm still without a job. I'm out here living at somebody else's house rent free. I feel like I'm just taking up space. But she was still so motivational. She being Amy was so motivational that she was like, no, Amber, you can do it. I don't mind you being here. Then I got a job, right? I didn't even have to apply to that job. Like I said, somebody came to me and said, hey, Amber, we know you're looking for a job. So here's a job position that we saw. And then I applied to it. And when I actually got into that job, one of my classmates, like somebody who graduated a year before me, was in that job. So it was like, hey, now we got something to connect because we all had the same experience. So she trained me and then moved on. But in that time period, the months, it is definitely a lot of ups and downs. You try to think like, what's next? Like, what am I gonna do? I don't want to go back to school, or I do want to go back to school, or I don't want to move back home, or I do want to move back home. It's so many things, but making sure you have that support system, that friend, that family member, whoever it is, that can basically say, you got this, just stay strong, something will come along, was the thing that got me going.
I love that. I mean, I'll share, and we sort of try to preach this to our students at New Student Orientation. It's about, we're not a cutthroat. We're not trying to trample each other for opportunities here. We rise together with our students in our program. And so there are people on this call who are PhD students. We have master's students. I think I've seen some undergraduate students on this call. You can learn and connect with people at any different level in this program who are maybe at the same time as you, going to be going through that process, or maybe a year or two ahead of you. And so if you connect with your peers and you build that network, you're going to have all those people who will also have your back. Maybe it's not a job, like you said, Amy was epi, you were not. And so you guys weren't competing for the same things. And so she's sending you stuff and looking out. That's critical. You got to have that support system. So, and people don't understand how much of a support system you can build with those people who are going through those same classes with you and those same experiences with you now.
Build study groups. I know it's probably hard during the pandemic, but that's kind of how I met the people that I ended up interacting with. Me and Amy was in a study group because we had social and behavioral theory the first semester, and I think everybody in the class got an F on the first test, and it was just like, what is going on here? None of us is made out for this, so we kind of formed different, and that was online. That class was online, so formed little online groups. I was in SAF, so I was in a lot of the little things. So meet people, connect, and you never know how those people could help you out later on.
Yeah. I'm done, John. I'm walking away.
You're done. That's it. Well, we'll wrap it up there and let Amber have her lunch in the last 10 minutes of the lunch hour. But thank you so much, Amber, for coming and sharing your experiences with us. It's definitely been insightful and I hope helpful for everyone on the call, plus whoever's going to be watching this later on. So just thank you again for coming back and talking to us.
Oh, thank you. And Scott, I saw you wrote in there, what was I saying? GS. It's just general schedule.
Oh my God. It's everything. The numbers, the acronyms, the experience. What are you guys looking for in every job? It's clear as mud, as they say, right? Like,
right.
You never know. I read those jobs all the time and I'm like, I don't even know what they're looking for.
Right. So the thing is, if you don't know what they're asking for, the position might say health science specialist, but it might be the AO for the director. Yep. But if you read the next 4 digits that come after, it might be a health science specialist 0299, then you can just Google 0299 VA and it'll pop up what the position is and what they're looking for.
Again, you've gone more in depth on this than anyone I've ever heard. Like, I feel like you've like passed the key to me, and now I'm just gonna go in.
You know, HR tells me the same thing.
It's true. It's true. You explained it in a way that most people don't. So that's good. Keep at it.
Oh, thank you. Well, I hope you all enjoyed it. I enjoyed being with you all. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amber.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
All right, bye.
Thank you.